Hi, this is Dan Matson. Please note that this podcast was created several years ago. Some of the links, email addresses, phone numbers, and promos are outdated and no longer valid. If you want to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Once again, that's woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thanks and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats weekly podcast, episode number 4. I am your host, Dan Matson, and this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to the craft, art, history, and tradition of wooden boats. Thanks for tuning in with us again today, folks. It's great to already be in episode 4, and I'm having a lot of fun with this. I haven't had this much fun in years, to be honest. This is fun stuff. Anyway, in today's episode, we're going to play some voicemail feedback that we got from Cliff Ravenscraft. Has a question about wooden boats. Cliff was my instructor in the podcasting A to Z class, and he's a great guy. I'd recommend you take that class if you want a podcast. And then we're going to have a interview. When I say we, I mean me, myself, and I. There's only one of us here. Have to get out of the habit of saying we. Anyway, I'm going to play an interview that I did yesterday with Dick Wagner. Dick is the founder of the Center for Wooden Boats in Seattle. And it's a fascinating story. It starts in the 1960s when he and his wife moved to Lake Union in Seattle, lived on a houseboat, had a few small wooden rowboats, and I'm not going to tell you anymore. You got to listen to this interview. And then we've got a few housekeeping items that we're going to take care of to begin with here. First of all, I did want to let you know that I am on the iTunes, BlackBerry, and Zune podcast directories. So what that means is if you pull up iTunes on your smartphone or on your computer and you click on podcasts and you search for Hooked on Wooden Boats, you can download my show there to your computer or your smartphone, or you can subscribe to the podcast. Same goes for those that have BlackBerry phones. If you go to the BlackBerry directory on your phone for podcasts, you can find Hooked on Wooden Boats there, and also in the Zune directory if you have a Zune player. So please subscribe to the show. That way it's automatically fed to you each week on your computer or on your smartphone device. One really exciting thing that's happening this week is when I finished the podcasting class with Cliff Ravenscraft, it went really well, and I offered to do a testimonial for Cliff, and he took me up on it. So I recorded about a 5-minute audio clip and sent it to Cliff, and he's going to be playing it on his podcast answerman.com show this week. So that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing that. And what else here? Lots of stuff happening. I have a new Twitter account for my wooden boat adventures, and it's called Wooden Boat Dan. So if you go to twitter.com/Wooden Boat Dan, you can follow me there if you have a Twitter account. If you don't have a Twitter account, I would encourage you to set one up. And I'm learning about Twitter as I go here, but what I'm finding is it's a great way to connect with people in a very abbreviated way, to kind of stay in touch with people, give announcements and that sort of thing. So if you want to use Twitter, I'm on there as Wooden Boat Dan. Also wanted to let my listeners know that this podcast is going to be weekly. I think I've said that before. And what I've decided is that I will have the podcast published by the end of the day, Thursday, each week. So what that means is when you wake up Friday morning, the new episode of the podcast will be available for you to download or listen to. So you can count on that every Friday morning. And I'm going to have it done by the end of Thursday. So it's available to you. That way you can count on it. I know the podcasts that I listen to, I love it when they have regular release times each week, and I'm in my car and I know that I can go get Podcast Answer Man on Friday and listen to it, and so I want to be able to do the same thing here. So next up, let's play the voicemail feedback that we got from Cliff Ravenscraft this week, that I got from Cliff Ravenscraft. Okay, take it away, Cliff.
Hey, Dan, it's Cliff Ravenscraft here from podcastanswerman.com, and I just wanted to say congratulations on the launch of your podcast. You know, I'd never really thought about wooden boats and getting into it as a hobby or as an enthusiast and stuff like that, but I know that, you know, obviously getting into wooden boats and some of the beautiful boats that I've seen pictured on your site and other various places looking around, it looks like it, you know, could be quite the expensive thing to get into. I wonder, is there anything that somebody who was just looking to get started, do they have like little kits that you can buy where basically you put together your own wooden boat? Maybe this is the stupidest question on earth. I have no idea. But I'm just wondering if you know, is there a way that somebody like myself and my son could put together, let's just say they order a kit online and put together your own wooden canoe or something like that? Anyway, there's my question for you. I'd love to hear your response, and we'll talk to you soon. Keep up the great work. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for that question, Cliff. The answer to the question is yes. There are companies that sell wooden boat kits, and they start at, I believe, around $600 to $800 in that range for a small boat. There's two companies that I would recommend. One is called clcboats.com. That stands for Chesapeake Light Craft. They're in Maryland. Yes, they're in Annapolis, Maryland. And the other company is called Pygmy Boats, and they are in Port Townsend, Washington. Both of those companies make excellent boat kits for small boats, kayaks, rowboats, small sailboats, and they will ship them to you, and they have all the supplies, instructions, they give you technical support. It would be a great thing to do with your son, and when you're all done, you've got a beautiful boat that you can show off to people and get out on the water and have some fun. So, yeah, check it out, Cliff. I'm going to put the web addresses on my website for those two companies. And then also, I believe you live in Hebron, Kentucky, and I looked up online, and there's a wooden boat shop in Cincinnati, which I think is pretty close to you. And I couldn't find their website, but they've got a phone number, and their phone number is 513-941-7281. That might be a place you could go and just get some information about wooden boat people in the area and wooden boat festivals, which are a great way to connect. There's also a company called Skillcraft, which has been making wooden boats in the Cincinnati area since 1904. So you might want to check that out. That's at skillcraft.com, and I will put those links up on the website under the show notes. So thanks for calling in, Cliff. Appreciate your call. Next up, folks, we have the interview. I have the interview with Dick Wagner from Center for Wooden Boats. It's a little bit over 50 minutes in length. So this podcast is going to be probably a little bit over an hour, which is longer than I like it to be, but this interview is very fascinating. I did not want to edit it out, and I think you'll enjoy every minute of it. And if you have to listen to it in 2 sessions, that's probably okay. Anyway, let's go ahead and start the interview. Okay, it's October 12th, I think, yes. 2011, and I'm sitting here with Dick Wagner. Dick's the Executive Director of the Center for Wooden Boats in Seattle. Thanks for joining us today, Dick.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We're actually sitting in the one of the workshop areas, so you may hear some woodworkers in the background, and that means people are being productive while we do this little interview.
Right.
So welcome to all your listeners here. And Dick, you're the founding guy for this place, right?
Yes.
You started this. So tell me that story, because that started, 25 or 30 years ago?
It's really, I don't know, it started even longer than that.
Yeah.
My wife Colleen and I live on a houseboat. We've been in Seattle since the late 50s, and we really enjoyed living on Lake Union, and one of the joys of it was that you could take a walk any direction along the shore of a lake, and within 100 yards you would be opposite a boat shop, a small boat shop, building wooden boats.
Mm-hmm.
There were dozens and dozens of them around the lake.
This
and
was
there were places
in the 50s, Dick. You're talking, or 60s?
Yeah, the late 50s.
Late 50s. Okay.
Yeah. And you could, just drop by and stand in the doorway and watch them. And if you don't ask too many dumb questions, you can get inside too. Many times I would point at a boat that was sitting alongside the shop with weeds coming out of them, and I'd ask them what that boat was for, and the usual answer was, "Take it home and fix it, kid." And I was lucky enough, and I did. I was lucky enough to have neighbors at the houseboats that were, fishermen, retired people from sawmills, and they also were boat builders and retired, and they all were very helpful. And so anyway, we had a little collection of boats to play with, and one day, 10 years later, in the late 60s, Colleen, my wife, said to me, "We've got to do something about the lake." And so I grabbed another cup of coffee, and I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, when we first came here, there were all these, probably well over 20 boat shops around the lake building wooden boats. Now there are only 3 or 4 shops left open, and they're only doing repair. And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "We've witnessed the end of an industry. We'll never see again, the activity in building wooden boats in such a small place." And she said we ought to use our boats, let the public use our boats, because they're never going to have a chance to see things like that anymore. We had a few rowing and sailing boats.
Yeah.
And
that was in the late 60s?
Yes.
And the
that was
number of
1967.
shops had gone from like 20 or more to 3 or 4
Yes.
on Lake Union.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the other shops had closed because they couldn't compete with fiberglass. And they didn't want to compete with fiberglass. They were wooden boat builders. Anyway, I was kind of reluctant. For one thing, I'm an architect, and I was the breadwinner at the house. And Colleen, I said, this is a virtuous idea, but I don't know whether we can really do it. And besides that, I felt those boats were my children. And but in any case, I thought about it long enough to finally agree with you, and I said, "We'll try it out. It'll probably last for a summer. Our friends and neighbors will come. We'll be doing good deeds. They'll have memories of how to, not just to see a traditional boat, but to touch it and use it." So I liked the idea and was willing to risk that time. So we opened it up in the February of 1968. And
how many boats did you have?
We had about 10 boats.
10 boats,
and
okay.
Small boats. And sure enough, our friends and neighbors came. But then more and more of them kept coming back again, using our house as their second home. And just because they hadn't tried out all the boats, or they wanted to just talk about building boats, or telling memories about how their grandfather or their father taught them how to row or sail in a wooden boat that they had built. And then the number of people that just kind of hung out at the center after they tried out all the boats, and they just come, they walk into our kitchen, grab some coffee, and we talk.
Wow.
And we also got lots of free publicity. We had no budget for publicity at all, and but all the newspapers and periodicals had interviewed us. And even Ed Bradley came from the East Coast, and he interviewed us. He was on 60 Minutes.
Oh,
before
really?
That, yeah.
Ed Bradley from 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a big deal.
Yeah. Anyway, so we we would we really never stopped at that point. And years kind of passed by. Our kids are growing up. They were learning to row and sail the boats. The oldest one was he was asked to be a sailing instructor for a lot of people because he was so good at it. And they were. It was just a wonderful atmosphere, and I was really having fun. And so was Colleen. It was really nice that my work was at home, so I was there every day, every time, every minute while our kids were growing up. And they were having fun. They were bringing, once they started going to school, then when they had field trips and from the kids, and our kids would take them out rowing.
Hey, Dick, can I unplug this phone here?
Yeah.
While we're talking here?
Good idea.
Sorry, folks. We're just going to unplug this. So
yeah, we don't need it.
The phone's not ringing in the background. Okay, there we go.
So
at this point, you were still loaning boats out to friends, or were you renting? Or
you were renting.
Renting, okay.
Oh, well, that's the other... we had an attitude that, if you came down here and you helped, refinish a boat, sand, paint, varnish... every hour's work will give you an hour's sale. So we had a lot of people that built up a lot of time. And then I needed help too because I was giving sailing lessons too. And so we had to hire somebody, and that was fun. Just to, most of the people we hired were in high school. And I taught them how to sail first, and then they had lunch with us. So we had a lot of people that had come because they heard about us through the through the grapevine, and they would drop in, coming from far distant places, East Coast, Midwest, and they would knock on our door and. Want to try out a boat, but they want to talk to us about how we got all this started. And many times they would, they would have breakfast with us, lunch with us, dinner with us, and then it was too late to leave.
On your houseboat?
Yes, yeah. So they slept on the sofa or on the floor. And Colleen kept saying, this is really good, but they're using a lot of time just talking to him. I said, well, what's wrong with that? And she said, it's just that it's nothing wrong with it, but we should control it so you don't have to be running around so much. And so she, after she told me this about 77 times, I finally decided that we would try it out, and I invited 20 of the most common, most regular hanger-outs to come to a meeting on the third Friday of that month, which was it was February, I think. Too.
What year was that, Dick?
That was 1976.
Okay.
Yeah, and so a lot had been happening since then. There were about we had thousands of new friends that we never had before, and so the meeting was going to be. Colleen said, just tell them that save your stories and save your questions for the third Friday of the month. And I was going to do it when they all came in. It was more than 20 people that showed up. We only invited 20, but 40 showed up. And so we had to make sure they were not all in the, standing next to the refrigerator getting beer, because then the kitchen would be underwater. So they all kind of gathered in the middle of the houseboat. And I just said, it just popped right out of my mouth. I said, you're all here because I want to get your opinion about whether we should become a nonprofit organization, move to a larger site, and have a more comprehensive museum. They always called it a living museum, a comprehensive museum where there's programs and activities for everybody, not just adults. Most of the people who came were middle-class, middle-aged people. And there was a silence for about 3 seconds. I looked over at my wife, and she gave me this kind of goofy smile because she didn't know I was going to say that. But we had talked about it between ourselves. Right. And then they all jumped up and said, "Yes, let's do it." So I said, "Okay, you're members of the board," and that's how. And then we called that operation the Old Boathouse.
Okay.
But immediately we really started planning, and it was really a lot of excellent people supporting us and coming up with good ideas. And we had got through the 501c3 process of becoming a nonprofit organization, and we had started having regattas every year, twice a year, in fall and spring at Gasworks Park, where people would bring their boats as well as our own boats. We bring.
So tell us what a regatta is for people who don't know.
A regatta is a gathering of boats. They could be sailing boats, they could be runabouts, and it's mainly they might be races, but it's mainly just a party with your floating toys. Anyway, that's was a way of also building up those regattas, excitement. More people would come each time just to come and look, or the people that own the boats would invite them, and so we were getting a larger and larger constituency. And I started looking at different sites around the lake, and I drew up potential site plans for about 5 different publicly owned sites around the lake that were not being used. And Waterway 4 was one of them. That's where we're sitting right now. Waterway 4 had been used for the past 70 years before as an asphalt plant that was city-owned. It was a city operation. The real use of waterways was created before the locks were even built, with the idea that one day Lake Union would be connected to the saltwater and Lake Washington, and there should be places along this lake closest lake, the closest navigable water to the center of the city, for maritime commerce, where ships or boats could come and land and discharge cargo, take on cargo, and come and go. So it had all these waterways were meant for maritime commerce.
Now, at that point, was Lake Union connected to Puget Sound and to Lake Washington?
Oh yeah,
because that had been
the
done.
locks and the ship canal were completed in 1917, so we're talking about
a long time after that. Okay.
Yeah, now we're in 1978, so the board and I kept talking about the different virtues and shortcomings of the 5 different sites that I drew up, and to my surprise, at dinner time one night, the phone rang, and it was the head of the Parks Department at that time, and he said the mayor would be very pleased if you would apply for a permit for Waterway 4. I didn't know that anybody else except our board even saw the plans, but.
Wow!
But
so
anyway,
the mayor was aware of it. The mayor's office.
Yeah.
And who was the mayor at that time, Dick?
Ullman.
Oh, okay.
No, or it was just after Charlie Royer, I think.
Royer, okay.
Anyway, I told this to the board. It was the one place that was really a mess because it had been used as an asphalt plant, and what came in and out were barges with gravel for the asphalt, and but they had closed it down because of some pressure from private industry that the city should allow other people to build and fix our roads, and they agreed. Well, in any case, we were offered this, and it was the mayor's offer, so we felt we were like listening to the voice of God, and we better do it. And as a matter of fact, well, the more we thought about it, the more we liked it, because it was such a a mistreated piece of waterfront on the edge of a mistreated neighborhood, which was called the Cascade neighborhood, which had, while the rest of Seattle was changing and kind of keeping in step, the Cascade neighborhood was still back in the 1880s, as far as rundown masonry and wood industrial buildings that were kind of falling apart, and a few small houses for the blue collar workers, and the school was gone, and it wasn't really a true neighborhood. It did not have it was not a good place to live, play, work, or learn. And so we said we'll be like the first step in a kind of a renaissance of South Lake Union. So we thought it was a good idea. We had built up a stronger and stronger, larger and larger constituency of friends and members, and so we started raising money for the facilities. And
so did you buy the land from the city then?
No, it was actually the waterways belonged to the Department of Natural Resources, and but the city was the DNR has property all over the state and waterways all over the state, wherever there's navigable waters. And if it's in an urban area like the city, they had the city sort of act as their agents, and so we had to get permission from both of them. The city said yes right away. DNR kind of stalled for a while, and then they finally decided that they were they were never going to do anything with it, and this was and there were 24 waterways on the lake anyway, so if there ever was any maritime commerce, it would not be something that would be badly needed.
Yeah.
So we raised money through foundation grants and private grants, and with a lot of people doing a lot of work. We had so many members that were really skilled carpenters and engineers and electricians and plumbers that we had a lot of the basic infrastructure done very cheaply, just for the cost of materials.
As far as building the buildings here and the docks, and did you have to build new docks here?
Yes. Oh yeah, there were no docks really here. They just they had some pilings there, and a kind of a crane that would pick up the gravel and out of the barges. So in 1980, we had finished the drawings for all these buildings, and then we had to wait to get our permits. And by 1983, we had our permits. We already had the first building, this shop, built right away, and had already been built. It was finished in 1982, so we just towed it in from where it was built in Ballard. And then in the next 5 years, we built just everything else you see here: the pavilion, the boathouse, the floats, the oar house. Anyway, by 1988, we had everything, and we also had a larger fleet. And then too, we had acquired a lot of boats through donations, and so we started here with about 20 boats. And
so when did you quit working in your architectural work and do this full time, Dick?
I didn't actually quit. I was still working. The last building I designed was in 1975, and it was a house on the lake. And then of course I designed these buildings too. So it was a kind of a, I didn't slam the door on architecture. I still liked architecture, but I just, once we got started on this, it was just more exciting, and in many ways, a lot of my classmates in architecture school have come by and dropped in to see what I actually had done. And when we were at school, we had, for 4 years, we had lots of challenges thrown at us, about, designing, important buildings, hospitals and, places for concerts and stuff like that. And it was all very exciting to do it. Those things to answer the problems of function and aesthetics. But in those late hours when we were working to get the final drawings done, and we would be talking to each other. We did the design was already done. We were just doing the drafting and about what we should be doing in the future when we graduate. And we were always talking about low-cost housing. There ought to be a way of having housing for people, homeless people, people with living in poverty and all that sort of stuff, and all the ways we could do it and all. And none of us really ever got around to it because you couldn't find a developer that wanted anything like that. But to my surprise, when my old classmates came to visit here, and they saw this wide variety of our diversity of our community down here, learning things and having a lot of fun at it, and they said, that I really nailed it on what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do, is some way of making life better for those people that deserve it, and never have a chance, and so they caught on right away. But the satisfaction that we get out of architecture was happening almost immediately. As soon as somebody came down here and learned how to tie a knot or sail a boat, or pick up some oars and row a boat that's really easy to row.
Yeah, and you had people from all different
outreach
income levels. And
that was our goal from the very beginning. What we did at the old boathouse behind my houseboat was, it seemed to me enough to just give people a chance to try these boats, but we didn't really have any outreach. It was we had this word of mouth from one sort of middle class person to another middle class person, and once we had this site, then I had to really start thinking more about the part of our population that I never saw before. And our first outreach programs were for sailing instruction for homeless teenagers, and that's still going on, and sailing instruction for disabled people, wheelchair people that couldn't use their lower body anyway. And they're both very, very successful programs. And then we tried to connect with public schools. The middle schools and the high school says, no, forget it. We've got their schedules are all set out, and they don't have any time for any more fun. I told them it isn't really fun. It could be fun, but you can learn a lot if you're having fun too.
Yeah, totally.
And they didn't take it, but the alternative schools, the private schools, and the home schools did. And so we really were having a wide variety of kids, and it was really fun for us to figure out ways to challenge them. We found that they were so the very first workshop that we had was with an alternative school, and we had 8th graders, 7th and 8th graders coming down here to learn how to sail boats. And we tried it first on a weekend, and it was an overnight thing. They slept on the Wawona, which used to be here, and on Monday morning we had a debriefing with the principal, and I told him while we were having breakfast that these kids were so smart. They were just all geniuses. They just figured out the sailing so quickly. And he looked at me and he said, "You know what an alternative school is?" And I said, "No." And he said, "This is a school where kids have been penciled out that they'll never graduate from high school. They're terrible at academics." And I said, as far as I'm concerned, we'll take more.
So they were really shining in this environment where they had hands-on work and they loved what they were
and they
doing.
worked well with each other. They were taking turns, being at the helm and and telling the others with the sheets what to do. And it was just they caught on so quickly. I was so amazed. So we realized that we were really onto something with all these with this outreach, and so we continued with a special emphasis on kids. And we had so many programs that eventually public schools right now are saying, yes, we want to have programs at the Center for Wooden Boats, because they've seen the results of these ones that they really wanted to cast off, how quickly they realized that the value of learning, and it was through the process of learning by using your hands as well as your mind, using the creative part of your brain along with the analytic part, and it's something that really helps for everybody. Yeah. Whether they're at-risk kids or whether they're well-adjusted kids, it's not just kids, adults, the same thing. They get a big thrill when they finish learning how to sail a boat or build a boat.
Right. So your original vision of having some wooden boats for people to mess around in and have some fun in just grew and became an outreach to the community, really, and to kids and disabled people and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that is really it's important for us to continue doing this, because we are an example for the rest of the country, the rest of the world, as a matter of fact. In the last couple of years, I've been acting as a guide and a consultant for 40 different communities around the world. St. Petersburg, Russia, Fogo Island, Nova Scotia, Coos Bay, Oregon, Sausalito, California, Provo, Utah, Bozeman, Montana. It's just more and more
helping
places.
Them set up programs like
yes,
this, Dick,
yeah.
And how they can kind of use this as a model for
exactly,
what they want to do.
Exactly.
Wow, that's
exciting. So it's a lot of fun, and so we have become a important part of a cultural resources of our area here. But we're also been counted on as to help out so many other areas, and so it's really a lot of fun.
Sounds like you're having too much fun down here. Yeah. I'm a little jealous. The accounting work I do isn't quite that fun.
Yeah.
So you kind of got the buildings launched and everything in the late 80s. And so tell me today a little bit more about what you guys do, how many people are involved, what the boats are that you have, classes, and kind of give me a little more overview from today's perspective.
Okay. Well, first of all, we'll use the word museum. Sometimes I say museum sounds too close to a mausoleum. But a museum is a place that collects, preserves, and interprets. And so we do that, but we do it in a different way. And we're a maritime museum, but we don't have big tall ships. We're a small craft museum, and the reason we're sticking with that is because we have it makes it easier to take those boats out. We don't need a licensed captain and a purser and an engineer at the engine and all. We do have some engine boats, and we teach a lot of our volunteers how to run them, and so that's another aspect of volunteering. We have our staff keeps growing, mainly because the demand for programs keeps growing, and we can't have one person running around like crazy. These people have to concentrate on working with kids and different ages, middle school kids, primary school, and high school kids, and we have different programs for all of them, and the wide reach of what the teachers really want them to learn about, how much on technology and how much on history and how much on social studies and geography, and we can put them all in. So anyway, we need more and more staff, and to handle the greater and greater demand, and they can't handle everything, so we also have volunteers. And I give the first talk to volunteers on once a month. We have them gather, and we usually have about 20 each time. Last Saturday was we had 38. That was the largest we had in the crowd, and there are 38 people, and they're of all different ages. It's usually most of them are men, but we still have I would say maybe a third of them are women. That's good. And we ask them, after I give them a pep talk, then they hear from the people in the various areas of running the shop, running the livery, running the front desk, what these people can do, and we have found so many benefits from these volunteers, especially on the boats. A lot of them just kind of fall in love with one particular boat, like the what do they call it? The Woods Hole.
The Woods Hole, right
Woods
here
Hole
in the shop.
Spritzel,
We're sitting here looking at it.
Yeah, or our little electric powered launch Dora, or our Lightning Zap. They focus on these boats, and they really want to, and they create a team that maintains them, and so it's a real blessing, and just giving the volunteers a chance to go beyond licking envelopes and for things that we're mailing out.
Yeah. Now, so you've got 20 to 40 volunteers at any given time, and how many paid staff do you have?
Well, right now we have in the summer we have more than in the winter because we just more activities. We have a base of about 25 staff people, but it's really more like about 36 in the summer.
Okay. And
we hire them through the the months of spring, May through October, and but as far as the volunteers, we really have about 1,000 volunteers, but I see new faces about 20 times. Every month when I
yeah, and for people to
introduce them
volunteer,
to the center.
for every 3 hours of volunteer, they get an hour with a boat.
That's
Is that
right.
How it works?
Yeah.
I read that on your website.
Yeah, that's really great. So many of the, of course, the most popular class we have is year-round is learning how to sail, and so we have a lot of volunteers for sailing instruction. That's really important.
Right. So out of all the wooden boats that you've used and built and repaired and sailed and rowed over the years, do you have some personal favorites?
Oh, that's not fair. That's like, who's your favorite child? I would say, I love the Beetle Cat. It's a boat that is cute because it's so it's 12 feet long and 6 feet wide. And
it's a sailboat.
Yeah, it's a cap. It has a gaff sail on the mast is right in the bow, and that's why it's called. And that rig is called a cat rig. And there's a long boom that overhangs the boat, but it's because of its wide beam you're sitting on the bottom of the boat, which is good for stability. But your head is just about almost at waterline. You can hear the bubbles going by on your wake as you're sailing, and they sail very fast. They come about very fast, and they're cozy, just sitting there.
How many Beetle Cats do you have here?
I think we have 3 or 4.
And Beetle Cat is a design that somebody came up with how long ago, Dick?
It came up with in early 1920s, about 1922, and it was meant to be a youth training boat for the New Bedford, Massachusetts Yacht Club, and it really is. They're still building them out of wood.
Wow!
So it's a class boat that goes back to the
20s,
early 1920s.
And the boats you have here, did you build here?
No, they were all built by in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, which is like a small town next to New Bedford, where they were originally built.
So they're a single sailboat.
Yes,
it's one sail on
yeah.
there. Okay. How about some other boats that you really like?
I love the Dora, named after Dora Duggan, and it is it's a launch that was originally designed for steam power by a local designer, Pat Spurlock, who lives in Portland now, and it's when he designed the boat. The first one was made in fiberglass, and then there were several more. So this is the first of that design that is made in wood. It was made by the boat building school and as part of the community
here at
college.
Here.
What?
Which boat building school?
In Seattle.
Oh,
yeah.
Seattle, North Seattle Community College, or is it Central Seattle?
Central.
Okay.
Seattle Central. And it is so beautiful, so graceful, so elegant, and it has an electric engine in it, which makes it really good when you're taking out visitors. We have free rides in some of our larger boats, including the Dora, on Sundays, and and of course with an electric motor, you can hear the guy at the helm.
Yeah. So what length and what's the design of the boat?
It's 24 feet, and it has a very nice sheer, very a fan tail.
Is it a sloop rig?
No, it's a power boat.
Oh, powerboat.
Has an electric motor.
Oh, okay. I was thinking the electric motor was the sail backup.
Yeah, it's very, No, don't have any of those.
Okay.
And there's another boat, a friendship sloop. It is a square. It has a gaff main and jib, and it's 25 feet on deck. It has a bowsprit, so it's longer than that, and it's a replica of a boat that was popular in Maine for inshore fishing, 25 feet. Told you that. Yeah, but it's just a strong, reliable, seaworthy, tough boat, and the Center for Wooden Boats got it as a donation from the builder who built it in Alaska, and we sold it to one of our volunteer sailing instructors because we knew he would take care of it well, and he has. And it's another boat that takes hundreds of people out for free.
And that's a
sails
sailboat?
on.
Yeah. And what length is that one?
On deck it's 25 feet.
Okay. And what's the rig on that?
A gaff main and a jib.
Wow, fun. Yeah. Cool. So a couple years ago, I'm thinking it's around 2 years ago, you opened up the center of the Kama Beach Center for Wooden Boats Center. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well,
that's on Camino Island.
Yes. In 1991, I was, we had been, going down here since 1983 when we got our use permit, and we just kept expanding, and I realized by 1991 that we needed a lot more space, and I looked and I talked to the board about it, and they said look around, and I did. I found one potential space on Mercer Island, on the east side of Mercer Island, that the county owned. It was a park, and they on the water, and they had never done anything about getting people out on the water, and they thought it would be a great idea. Another one was in Bainbridge Island. Port Blakely properties had basically most of the property around Blakely, Port Blakely, and they wanted to make it into a sort of neighborhood with homes and shops and recreational things, and they thought the idea would be good too. And then Tacoma was thinking then about bringing the people down to their waterfront and the Theophos waterway, which it wasn't called that then, but anyway, they really wanted to focus on that, so they were interested in it. And so I was putting together a kind of a slideshow for a retreat that I can show the board. I thought that they were all potentially good ways of expanding because they were all where there were a large contingent of people living, and that would be able to just drop in on an impulse on a sunny day or something and to try out the boats, as that we found here. I didn't want it to get too away out in the woods, but that before I had that retreat for the board, I was called by a member, one of the State Parks Commission, a member of the State Parks Commission. These are a group of people that are asked to make sure that the state parks are doing what they want to do, as what they should be doing at the different areas. And they had been, I was told by the man that called me that they had a possibility of gaining a piece of property on Camino Island. Would I come and look at it? And I said yes. I wanted to see it, but I didn't know why. And they said it's because we have gotten a lot of evaluations in recent years from the visitors to our parks, and for those parks that were on navigable water, we got a lot of notes saying, why don't you have something that we can get out on the water with, and rather than just throwing rocks in the water. And so they said we thought this might be a good place for that. So he met me one morning, drove up there, and I got the tour of the place, and the last I looked at all the cabins and all the other buildings. It was built in 1932, and all the buildings were still functional. I mean, some of them, the shingles had gone off the roofs and all, but they were all repairable. They built it well and maintained it pretty well.
And it was if I understand correctly, it was a family-owned business where
Yes.
you go up there and stay in the cabins and salmon fish in Puget Sound, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Or crab, or get clams,
Yeah,
or get
right.
rockfish.
Right.
Everything was there.
And that closed down in the 70s or
No,
something?
it closed down in the late 80s. So
Late
here we
80s.
were in the the early 90s looking at it, and so I had to write a report to the commission, and I said these buildings are all usable. They need some repair, probably definitely new electrical and plumbing, and but I said that you could become a living museum. It's just a it's sort of a time lapse. You're just walking back into the 1930s when you were there. There was nothing. Anyway, the commission was very excited about it, and they were also saying, well, what about the Center for Wooden Boats? Would you like to be on it? And I said, well, I'm going to talk about this with my board. So anyway, the date came when we had the retreat, and I got more slides, and so I had 4 different sites to show them, and in the morning I did 2 of them, and in the afternoon after lunch 2 more, and the last one was a Kama Beach one. I was sure they would say no, it's too far away, nobody lives there, and blah blah blah. They were so excited about it. They were kind of drifting off by we got to the last one, because it was a warm day and the sun was coming in, and I could see them kind of drowsy. They didn't mind any of the others. They thought they were all potential, but when they saw the Kama Beach, they said, we want to have another retreat right on Kama Beach. So I called up the sisters that still owned it and told them that what we wanted, and so they said, yes, that's okay. We can open up some cabins for you. So the board went up and stayed overnight, and so we were there for a weekend. And they said at the end, if you never do anything else, Dick, get it.
Yeah.
So,
wow, it's a beautiful facility.
Yeah.
I've been up there a few times.
Yeah.
Just
and the state was happy about it too. We worked beautifully
because it's
with
a state park.
Yeah.
It's a state park, right?
State parks,
Yeah.
and the 2 sisters that owned it, and the Center for Wooden Boats were really working together. We all wanted it. So.
And this Saturday you've got a small boat event there.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about that real quickly.
Well, of course, the big thing is trying to get more people to Kama Beach. There isn't a big population on the island, but it's an hour and a half drive from Seattle. So we try to do activities that will keep bringing in more and more people. The park itself is very successful, and people that we never knew before come, rent a cabin there for a weekend or a week, and the Center for Wooden Boats is right in the middle of it. They just kind of so they try out our boats, they rent the boats and go crabbing or sailing, but we want to kind of keep revolving with more boats, showing more boats than what we have now. So we came up with the idea of having people bring the boats that they have built in their backyard, which is kind of a...
Is that what this Saturday is?
Yeah.
You bring your own boat?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm going to
show
be there,
them off
so
and try
I'll
out.
probably bring off one of my boats.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Are you going to be there?
I'm going to try to.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the cool thing about that place is people, they want to camp at a state park, right? And
Yeah.
they see this one on the water, and they go up there, and they stay in a little cabin. It's
Yeah.
a replica of a 1930s cabin.
Yeah. But it is a 1930s castle.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And they stay there, and then here's the Center for Wooden Boats right in the middle of it, like you say. So it's a great way. So let me ask you this question. If I didn't know anything about wooden boats and came to you and said, Dick, why should I be interested in wooden boats? What's so great about that? What would you tell somebody?
If you like Shakespeare's plays, if you like the Mozart's music, if you like Rembrandt's paintings, you should like boats too. Wooden boats. Wooden boats are works of art. They're functional works of art. Mm-hmm. They're getting you out in the water in a artful way. They're especially if it is powered by sail or more oars or paddle, so you don't have to hear or smell fuel. But you just don't get that.
There's nothing like it, is there?
Right. Yeah.
I've never found anything like it.
Yeah.
It's just you totally forget about everything else.
Yes.
You're just in a different world.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah. So I think we're going to wrap it up here, Dick. I really appreciate your time. Tell us if people want to find out more about the Center for Wooden Boats, maybe your website address or email or phone number, or how they could get connected.
All of the above. Yeah, our phone number is area 206-382-2628. And I really, and our website is cwb.org. And
email address?
Email address. Well, my email is dick@cwb.org. I spend a lot of time answering questions from emails. I really love that. That's one of my tasks.
Cool. So I'm going to, when I publish this podcast, I'll put the phone number and website and email on my internet site so people can get it there too. So, any parting comments for us, Dick? Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, it was enjoyable talking to you. I really, sometimes I'm just so wrapped up in, some individual thing that I'm doing that I forget for a while that this didn't just snap in place. It took a long time, and I really, frankly, I get too much credit for it. There are about 1,000 other people beside me that played key roles in making this thing come into being.
Great. Well, I really appreciate your time, Dick. This is like I mentioned to you earlier, I started visiting this place in the 90s when I started building my first serious wooden boat, and I've just been in love with it ever since then. And it's a real honor to be able to interview you and find out more about the history and the excitement that you have about this whole thing. And I really appreciate your time today. So I guess we're going to end there. So Thanks a lot, Dick.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Dick Wagner. I just thought it was fascinating myself. And Dick is a kind, nice gentleman. If you ever get to Seattle, I would say give him a call, look him up. He's a wealth of information, and he loves to talk about wooden boats, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up here. I would love to get some feedback from you, and there's several ways you can do that. You can call the Feedback Listener Hotline at 424-261-2360. That's 424-261-2360. You can also leave a comment on the website. On each of the pages, there's a comment area that you can leave a comment on, or you can email me at dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com. And I have a question for my listeners, and I'd like you to respond to this, if you would, on one of the feedback in one of the feedback arenas. Tell us about a wooden boat you have built or owned and why you were so crazy about this boat. Okay? I would really appreciate your feedback. So thanks for tuning in this week. It's been a pleasure to have you listen in, and we're excited about next week.
And in fact, next week we are going to do an interview with Corey Friedman from skinboats.com. And Corey is a skin boat expert. Had a fascinating interview with him, and we're going to play that next week. So tune in again. Until then, have a great week, and thanks for listening. Talk to you later.